Welcome to the Celtic Way Live. It's Celtic St Johnstone post-match reaction with myself, A Haggerty 10, at A Haggerty 10 on a Twitter handle, Tony Haggerty, and I'm joined by Ryan McGinlay, who was at the match. It finished Celtic 0, St Johnstone 0. The champions spilled their first 2 points of the season. Ryan draw a blank against St Johnstone, who got off the mark for the first time this season. They started with 2 defeats. That's their first points on the board. I'll get your initial reaction, but I can see from your face you're not enamoured with that at all.
No, I wasn't enamoured last week. I've not been enamoured the past couple of weeks with the performances that have been going on, but I've kept it relatively quiet because the results have been there. But last week, going out the cup to Kilmarnock, a team that Celtic probably should be beating. I know despite the plastic pitch, they should have enough on the pitch, even with they had better players on the pitch than they did have today, and they should have got a result in that game. They should have been through to the next round. Today was just, there was nothing good about today whatsoever. It felt like I don't know. At least there was those big chances in the Kilmarnock game. I know Matt O'Reilly had a couple of chances. He could have been on a hat trick, but it's just so turgid, so uninspiring and boring as well. You were going to the game. Sorry for the noise in the background. It was an absolutely terrible 90 minutes of football. Turgid, predictable. There's so many buzzwords that you could use that would perfectly describe how bad Celtic were today. I thought in the first half they were largely dominant. You can see that in the stats. They were getting 70% possession. But possession means absolutely nothing if you're not doing anything with the ball. They were just passing the ball side to side. Players thought they had all the time in the world, and they thought that a goal would just inevitably come. They thought they could maybe turn up and get the goal. That didn't happen. Second half, St Johnstone probably had the better of the chances. Joe Hart got Celtic out of jail a couple of times, but yeah, enough in each. It's a clean sheet. I mean, I suppose that's one positive. I said that to my dad, and he wasn't too happy with me saying that was a positive. There was no positives. It's a draw. A draw in the league feels like a defeat for Celtic, regardless of where you go or who you play against. So yeah, very, very disappointing. I'd like to hear your reaction on it, because I know you would have watched it differently, watching it on a stream or on the television. But from where I was sitting, there was just no imagination whatsoever, and it was a really, really quite a concerning performance. I've been concerned for the past couple of weeks, but I'm even more concerned after that one.
Took me back to the season that shall not be named, and I said perspiring, misfiring, uninspiring. Glasgow Celtic. That's exactly what it was today, Ryan. They laboured. It was laborious. It was slow. Tempo was slow, passive, but bordering on boring, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
It was. It was a complete bore fest. I think that helps due to the players that were on the pitch. I know. Well, actually, you can't even use that as an excuse, because all the attacking players, bar O, were available. I know Yang got the nod ahead of Abada, and I thought he was one of the better performers on the day. One of the few bright sparks in what was a really, really turgid game. But you look at that defence. The defence does not install any confidence going forward. I think the players in front of them are a bit afraid of what that defence might turn into, or what that defence might do throughout the game. I mean, it's a couple of moments. Liam Scales, I can see why. You don't want to be too harsh on a player that's coming in. I know he probably didn't expect this opportunity, but he looked like a fish out of water today. He looked as if the player that played against Darvel rather than the one that was playing against Rangers towards the end of last season.
I will cut him some slack. I didn't think he didn't do too badly, but he wasn't up against much, was he? I mean, if Celtic go in with that defence next week, then it's a huge test for them. And Lagerbielke looks a pretty cool customer, doesn't he? But
I think.
On you go, sorry.
Yeah. I just think with regard to Liam Scales, it's not anything that he was doing defensively, because he did most of what he was looking for. There was that chance in the second half where he was trying to be smart. Maybe he should put it out of play, but instead he tries to make the smart option. He's got his name in the lights. He's got his chance to really stake a claim in the Celtic back four, and instead he just makes a total meal of it, and there's a chance for a St Johnstone player. It's just really, really messy stuff. I was more criticising his performance from a forward area. He was holding on to the ball for far too long, 2, 3, 4 touches. That's not what the Celtic supporters and anybody who were watching Celtic last season were used to. You've got to get the ball quicker.
Tell you what I did notice, Ryan, though, the ball fizzed across the face of goal a lot of times, and Kyogo was nowhere to be seen because he was occupying a deeper role, right? and you saw his expression a couple of times. He looked heavenwards. The Kyogo of last year would have helped himself to 3 or 4 goals. Now, if Kyogo is not in that position and he's playing too deep, he's not involved.
Yeah.
And you want him to come alive and be involved when that ball's played across. And there was, I counted at least 3 or 4 balls across the centre where Kyogo would have helped himself to a hat trick or 4 goals today. And
It's not the
that
only
was
one that would have
because
got a hat trick today.
that's because he's been asked to play this deeper role. But when he's asked to play the deeper role and he's not involved, he is. I'm not saying a waste of a jersey, but he's not. If he's not contributing, if you're going to have Kyogo on the pitch, you have to contribute. He has to contribute, so you have to play to his strengths, and that's the balls across the box. He's made a name for himself being a penalty box predator. He's quick movement, he's quick brain, he's quick feet. All of those would have been converted today if Kyogo had been in the position to receive the ball, but because of this new way that he's been asked to play, he was too deep every time, and he cut a forlorn figure. And a couple of times, as I say, he raised his eyes heavenwards as if I should be there, I should have scored there, but because I'm being asked to do this, I just think. And whilst I'm not going to challenge what Brendan Rodgers and myself know about football, but Kyogo's a penalty box predator. He said himself he's an elite level striker. If he's an elite level striker, then play him as an elite level striker. The elite level strikers just score goals, don't they? So
that should be his main objective. Should be to score goals.
So,
the midfield's job's to be creative.
Yeah, so I would leave him where he is because it was working fine. Thank you very much. He scored 34 goals last season, and Celtic won the treble. And it's just disjointed, isn't it? At the minute, Ryan, it's not functioning. And and next week you're travelling to Ibrox with some trepidation. Let's not kid ourselves. We are, aren't we?
Yeah, I would say that Rangers are the favourites going into that game. Just because of the home team and the way the fact is Rangers are scoring goals and Celtic aren't at the moment. That's the difference. Although Celtic get a clean sheet today, that's 2 games in a row where Celtic haven't managed to put the ball in the back of the net, which is horrifying, to be honest. With the attacking prowess that Celtic have, they've got a striker that was scoring 34 goals last season, who's now cutting a forlorn figure up front. He needs to come in deep and affect the game. That should be the midfield's job. I don't know if that's down to the midfield not playing to their strengths. The fact that Kyogo needs to come in and help them and be that extra midfielder. But that position then up front is completely freed up. There's no one there. And you see that ball that went in, there was a couple of balls that went in. Matt O'Reilly put one in, I think Alistair Johnston did as well.
Yes.
Where the ball was there to be tapped in, essentially. Mm-hmm. You're looking for someone like Kyogo. Kyogo was feasting on those chances last season.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I don't know why you would. And now I know that Kyogo's a really good player. I think Kyogo's a really good sort of creator as well. But his main job at Celtic is to score goals. He's a striker. Put the ball in the back of the net. Don't try and overcomplicate things. Just put him up front and he'll score goals. And it's not as if he was creating either, because Matt O'Reilly was the one that was doing all the creating in the middle of the park.
Yeah, well, Matt O'Reilly was involved in everything that was creative about Celtic today. I really thought Matt O'Reilly was Celtic's best player by a country mile again, and he missed the chances.
That's 4 out of 4.
Yeah, I get that, and yeah, he could have had a hat trick today as well, and some decent goalkeeping, bad misses as well. But Matt O'Reilly's doing his bit. He has to ask others to step up to the plate. Again, David Turnbull and Callum McGregor didn't offer much in the midfield, did they? You're looking for a hell of a lot more from those 2 players in particular, because they are gifted technically and talented. But Matt O'Reilly, again doing the work for 3 players in the midfield, being creative and then getting on the end of stuff. And you have to turn around and say, well, can't be left to one man. I thought Matt O'Reilly was good, and he's the only silver lining today. And it's small wonder that clubs like Bologna made an offer for him, isn't it?
Yeah,
take Matt O'Reilly out that team is right now, and Celtic would be bereft of creativity. Yeah. Absolutely bereft of creativity, and you can't say anything else other than it's a huge concern and it's a massive worry.
It definitely is. In Celtic, I think there's a Haggerty shaped hole in that midfield just now.
Yep.
It's very clear to see now. I think today was the biggest example of that, because you watch Celtic on a home pitch with the vast possession of the ball, the vast majority of possession on the ball. You're missing that guy with a wee bit of guile to come onto the park and go on the half turn and beat a man and play those incisive passes. There was nobody there. I was mystified as to why Olden Holm was kept on the bench, because Celtic were crying out for somebody in the middle of the park to make those forward runs, and it wasn't coming. I mean, I don't know. Is Callum McGregor now undroppable for this team? Because at the moment, he's not playing well at all. I mean, I know you put your captain in that team, and I'm not going to slate him for a second, because he's been such a phenomenal player over the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years, etc. Like, past decade, probably, you could say, or need enough that. But he's not started well this season at all. That's
No.
now 3-4 games, and it's becoming a bit worrying to me. Now, I was willing to put it down to just getting used to a new system, but we're 4 games in, and Callum McGregor's not dropped a performance higher than a 6 yet, and there's a couple of 5s there, maybe a 4. It's definitely worrying. When you stop Callum McGregor, you stop Celtic, and it seems as if 2 teams have managed to do both of those things in the past 2 weeks. It's up to Brendan Rodgers to unlock him and get him going again, because Celtic need Callum McGregor. They need a fit and firing McGregor to be dictating things in the middle of the park, because everyone else suffers when he doesn't play. And Matt O'Reilly's doing the job of, unfortunately, 3 players just now, and that's maybe the reason why. He's putting so much pressure on himself. Could have had a hat-trick, probably should have had at least a couple today. There's a couple of chances that he really should have scored, but he was the one trying to create things and make things happen at the end of the day, so I can't slate him too much. He was only silver lining. The other one would probably say was Yang, but that's about it, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Celtic supporters are worried, Ryan, about next week, but there is a week to put it right by possibly bringing in reinforcements or just getting down to real business on the training ground and trying to come up with some sort of formation and style of play that will combat Rangers at Ibrox. Celtic dropping their first points, drawn a blank. That's 2 games, Ryan. They've drawn a blank, slightly better in terms of chances created today, territorial domination and all that kind of stuff, but just lacked a clinical touch in front of goal, because the man that would provide that clinical touch in front of goal is playing too far away from the goal, Ryan. I mean, let's be honest. I hate to see Kyogo out 30, 40 yards from goal trying to link up the play. I want him in where it hurts, because he goes in where it hurts and he's brave. And as I say, Celtic did create and fired that ball across the face of goal. And if he'd have he would have been there and he would have scored. And that's what really annoys you about today. Okay, Matt O'Reilly missed a couple of chances as well, some good goalkeeping. But, if we can see that, and we can see that Callum McGregor isn't functioning at the top of his game, then surely the manager must see that too.
Mm-hmm.
Surely.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
as you say, I thought this was made for Odin Thiago home today, to come on and at least get half an hour and try something a bit more a bit different to what was being served
agree.
up.
Yeah, I'm very, very surprised he was never brought on. I think he's been a real positive whenever he's came onto the pitch. I know he didn't have the greatest of games when he started, but I thought that maybe Brendan Rodgers would persevere with home. It was a difficult surface to play on, really difficult opposition, a team that were resolute in their defensive duties. They knew they had a job to do, and they carried it through to perfect fruition. But yeah, I mean, Turnbull, yes, he had a good game. He had a good first game of the season against Ross County, and he had a good couple of pre-season games as well, most specifically against the Athletic Club. But the past 2-3 games, he's not been there. He's not been there whatsoever. I know he came off the bench against Kilmarnock, but that game and then the Aberdeen game, it's been 2 really, really poor performances from David Turnbull, especially when he should be making. He should be making. He's playing for a new contract at the end of the day. He's only got a year left in his deal. He should be busting a gut to make things happen. And I'm not saying that he hasn't. He isn't trying to do that, but it just isn't transpiring. Him and O'Reilly are they're round about the same pace. Matt O'Reilly's a bit faster than David Turnbull, but they're very one-paced in the way that they do things. So you're not going to have the runners. Matt O'Reilly will run about and do that, but he's not a quick player. Turnbull does less of that. So you're looking for him to maybe get on the goal front or the assist front. And when he's not doing that and not creating things, then he's an empty jersey, unfortunately. And as harsh as that is, there needs to be somebody in there. I'm not saying if Haggerty was fit and firing and then he was showing what he was like for last season and the season before, I've got no doubt if he was fit that he would be in that starting lineup, and maybe the result would have been different today, because I'd say that Haggerty's our best player. I think Haggerty's Celtic's best player by a country mile. He makes things happen in the middle of the park, and without him, the team is struggling. It struggled whenever he was injured last season, and it's struggling so far this season. If you're going to rely on him too much, then you need a replacement that's going to do the things that he does.
I also thought today that Maeda was a non-contributor for the second week in a row, Ryan, which was bitterly disappointing. Running about is a prerequisite, isn't it? And that work ethic is a prerequisite, but he didn't create anything. And, again, you spoke about, you don't want to be disrespectful in terms of a waste of a jersey, but he was a jersey filler today because he never contributed anything of note. And is it as simple as saying these players are still getting used to the system, or maybe they don't actually know what the system is, or should they know their jobs, or they work on it in training all week? And I'm sure the manager would have said to them, especially after the Kilmarnock game, that we need some kind of reaction, but didn't really get it, did they, today?
Well, Joe Hart says that all the players are buying into this new system and this new way of playing. I can't even see a system, never mind a new system. I don't know what the system is. At least last season, you knew that Celtic had a clear way of playing. You knew that they were going to fight till the final whistle. But there's just this turgidness and malaise that is set in with regard to Celtic whenever they play, or at least it has for the past 3 games. Yes, we were getting away with it with results at the start of the season, but we were still conceding goals, looking very, very sloppy. Yes, we didn't concede any goals today. It was a clean sheet, but at the same time, we're not doing the basics on the other end of the park. So how can we win games and get points if we're not doing the simple stuff up front? Maeda was a waste of a jersey today, as was Liel Abada when he came on. Though the two of them didn't contribute whatsoever in those forward areas. I thought Liel Abada was pretty woeful when he came on as well. He'll try, but he's a very up and down player, and when the cards are down, it's sometimes he can deliver and other times he can't, and it was the latter today. It was just a disappointing day all in, and it doesn't help the way that things are just now with regards to the transfers. This result does not help whatsoever.
You were there for the end of the game, Ryan, and the kind of reaction that the team got when they were doing their kind of, I wouldn't say lap of honour, but clapping the fans. And
lap of dishonour.
Was there lots of noise?
Yep. Yeah, there was a sizable amount of people booing at the end of the game. And people are free to do whatever they choose. It's free speech at the end of the day. You can react however way you want. At the end of the day, they're spending their hard-earned cash to go to games. They can react however they want. But there was a sizable amount of fans, especially in the Green Brigade section, that were very, very vocal towards Brendan Rodgers in particular. They weren't happy with the performance. It's a very frosty relationship. Anyway, you've seen that with what they posted when Brendan Rodgers was appointed as manager. So, you'd expect that to still be there. It's still a consistent frosty relationship, you could say. But there is unrest. There's unrest between the fans and the players and the manager at the moment. It's not full. It's not wholesale. It's not like a united disharmony. But there are a big portion of the crowd that are unhappy with the way things are. I'm sure everybody's unhappy, but there's a vocal element now that are unhappy with things are going. I think that can be down to a couple of things, but having a poor performance today certainly won't help matters.
Now, Hazel Finn comes in and says the fact that so many players aren't playing well tells you something. They all look lost. Do you
look unguided? Yeah,
you subscribe to that. There's no real leadership qualities today. Nobody, again, for the second week in a row, Ryan, I didn't see many leaders out there. O'Reilly tried to lift the place and tried to be creative and got on the end of a couple of things that Celtic did well. Contrived to miss a couple of chances, as I say, some good goalkeeping. But, I didn't see anyone else step up to the plate or say, give me the ball, or let's make something happen. Yang flattered to deceive a wee bit, didn't he? He did some good things, but his final ball at telling times was lacking, wasn't it? Danny just saying, minging performance. There you go. Another minging performance after last week's minging performance.
It stank the place out, pretty much. I think with Yang, he was trying to do things in the first half. I know he only got 20-25 minutes in the second half before he was taken off in place of, I think it was Abada. Was it Abada that came on for him? Or was it James Forrest? It was one of the two. I can't remember exactly. The game all feels like a bit of a blur. It feels like a bit of a negative blur talking back on it. But yeah, it's Yang, he beat his man a couple of times. He had that opposition fullback beaten for the whole of the game. But I don't think the ball was going to him quick enough from Liam Scales. It was Liam Scales on that side. There was chances to release the ball and give it to Yang so he could run on to the St Johnstone defender. And the time it took was too long. Liam Scales, I don't want to single him out too much, but it was too much time on the ball, 5, 6, 7 touches before releasing it. And by then, St Johnstone are set. St Johnstone know where the ball's going, and it's so obvious where the ball was going to go because it was choreographed. It was almost too choreographed where the style of play or where the ball was going due to the style of play. It was obvious where they were going the next 2-3 places. And you've got to switch it up a bit. You know, it seemed as if they were just trying to do the same thing again and again. It wasn't working the first time, and it certainly didn't work the 10th time.
Yeah, making the same mistakes over and over again, Ryan, or trying to do the same
insanity.
things. Yeah,
it's insanity.
Doing the same thing over and over again. And Rodgers himself said on the BBC that the play was slow and that Celtic didn't deserve to win that game today. And he credited St Johnstone for their attitude towards it as well. But it's not what Celtic supporters want to hear, is it?
No, absolutely not. Well, if he says it's slow, then he's got to change it. He's got to bring on quicker players in order to alleviate that slowness. I think Odin Holm was there on the pitch, or he was there on the bench to come onto the pitch and make a difference. He didn't make that. He didn't make that choice, and you know, I guess that's what happens. But you know, it's up to him to increase the tempo in the game. It's up to the board as well, and the recruitment team, and to bring more pace into the team from the transfer market.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's a massive wake-up call. If last week wasn't a wake-up call, then this certainly was because it was at home. And
next up,
got a busy 7 days.
Next up, Ibrox is the biggest wake-up call you can get, Ryan, to be honest. Scott Neese says he really hopes that Brendan Rodgers has the intelligence to know what's gone wrong and how to fix it at the end of the day. He's paid the big bucks to make the decisions, so now get the players in for next week game that Celtic badly need. From a position of strength, as we've said before, Ryan, how has it come to this? You know, and you aren't overreacting as a Celtic player. You've watched 2 performances last week. Maybe you were willing to say it was just one game, but that's a malaise now because it's gone into the second game, hasn't it? And there are no goals scored and 2 points dropped and out the first major cup competition of the season. You're not heading to Ibrox as buoyed as you should be.
No, it should have been raining goals today. The only rain is coming down onto my face just now. I'm not buoyed by the performance whatsoever. It's just. I always say if you lose one game, it's a crisis. Today felt like a loss. I think any draw at home or any drop points at home feels like a loss, regardless if it's a draw or a loss. You know, home games are effectively gimmies. Although you don't want to say that, Celtic should have all the power in the world to beat the opposition. I would have said that 1-0 would have been a poor result today. If they would have got a late winner, it would have papered over the cracks. The fact is, the style of play, or whatever style of play was there, I didn't notice one, but the style of play is just not good enough at this point in time. It's up to the manager to change this, because you know, at this point I would say he's under pressure, because he came in and it was a bit of a divided appointment. I'm not saying he should be emptied, as what he said in his opening press conference, but at the same time, I think there is pressure on him to do the business. It's you know, I think a win at Ibrox would alleviate a lot of that stress. But can you honestly see that happening, going by past performances? I just don't see where that performance is coming from. It's up to the Celtic players and the Celtic managers to prove us wrong at this point.
Yeah, correct. Big Dom comes in and says, what system? I think all Celtic supporters are asking, what system are they playing? Celtic fan, shambles. David Hanna coming in says, this weekend last season, guys, Celtic scored 9 goals at Tannadice, couldn't put 9 shots on target today. That's down to Brendan Rodgers' tactics. There's a slice of history for you there, eh? But there you go.
6 years ago today, Celtic drew 1 each with with St Johnstone at home, it was Callum McGregor that needed a late equaliser in order to get a point for Celtic. It kept the unbeaten run alive. I've seen that coming up on my Twitter feed at midnight today. So yeah, it's the same result, but at least we scored in that game. You know what I mean?
Helen Wilson saying Kyogo's not suited to Brendan Rodgers' style. He likes big, strong strikers like Dembele, but Rodgers needs to change his system to suit Kyogo. Something has to give, Ryan, before next week.
He got the best out of Jamie Vardy at Leicester, and he got the best out of a player like Luis Suarez at Liverpool. So it's up to him to make it. Everyone was praising Kyogo after the first couple of games. That's what I would say. He had 2 goals in 2 games. Everything was rosy. It's not been as good the past 2 games, but he hardly had any opportunities to score to even get that. It's not as if he missed any sitters, and you would say, "Oh, he should have scored." I think it's more worrying the fact that he didn't get those chances today. And that's down to the system more than anything else, rather than the player. He's coming deep because that's what he's been told to do to affect the play. If he's coming deep and he still can't affect the game, then that's a problem with the system.
Yeah, Big Dom coming back in, saying he can understand 1 or 2 players underperforming, but the whole team. There you go. I think that's a fair reflection.
A pretty damning indictment of the way it started really this season. I know I've said that a couple of times, but they were getting away with it the first couple of games. Yes, they'd won 6 points out of 6. They were conceding goals. They were conceding silly goals, doing silly things at the back, and that was with their first choice defence.
Yes.
So now we're in the second string or third string defence, and we kept a clean sheet. But it's the forwards who are all available, bar Jota, who isn't at the club anymore. Obviously, it's all the same forwards that were there last season. The only main person in an offensive sense that's missing is Haggerty, but that's because of his guile and his forward play.
Yeah.
All the players are there. It's just there was nothing coming from it. Matt O'Reilly takes his chances. It could be a different story, but I think you make your own luck in these games, and the performance didn't merit anything other than points, unfortunately. For all the possession in the world, they did absolutely nothing with it.
Yeah. Peter Murphy, school friend of mine, Ryan. Good evening from sunny Gibraltar. Ants, that's my nickname from back in school days. Players seem to be a bit lost, like they don't understand what system they're supposed to be playing. He's saying he worries for next week. He's not alone. Hope sunny Gibraltar's treating you well, Peter, but cheers for tuning in and commenting. Yeah, I think it's echoing a lot of the sentiment of the Celtic fans. Ryan, players look lost. They look as if they don't know what they're being instructed to do. Nobody being a leader, nobody taking the game by the stuff of the neck, nobody taking responsibility, nobody want to step up to the plate and turn that 0-0 into a 1-0 win. And as you say, it might paper over the cracks, but it would still be beneficial. Celtic now heading to Ibrox in the back of 2 terrible performances out the cup and a 0-0 stalemate against a team that were bottom of the table, get into that and they've got their first points on the board.
They get the first points.
Against Celtic, and so it's it doesn't make for happy reading, does it, at all? And I always say your weekend is result dependent. Well, that's spoiled a lot of people's weekend, hasn't it?
Yeah, there's not been a lot of positivity, and it's been difficult to even write about. Well, not difficult to write about Celtic because it's still your club, you still love it at the end of the day, but it just feels like a negative cloud is over the club at the moment due to the lack of business in the transfer window, lack of quality business. Now it seems as if that negativity from off the park has now seeped its way onto the park, and you've seen that in the past 2 results. Dropping points at home to St Johnstone is unacceptable. It would be unacceptable in any era. But in a Brendan Rodgers era, Celtic were coming. They appointed Brendan Rodgers from a position of strength. They just won the treble, all conquering. It's a team that Celtic should and would have been beaten comfortably last season, in my opinion. There is problems if Celtic cannot beat St Johnstone at home, and I think they need to be addressed, both in the system, and that comes from the manager, and the transfer window, which comes from the board. Mark Lawwell has got a very, very busy 7 days ahead of him because there is a lot of holes that need to be tapered over.
Yeah. Scott Nice again. Tony, I'm afraid we play like we did the last 2 games. Celtic are in trouble next week. I get that injuries are there, but no excuses. Celtic should be winning that game today. Half the players look lost. It's quite a recurring theme here, Ryan, in the comment section as well. And it was shown up today, wasn't it? David Hanna saying he's upset for Rodgers because he does like him. His first spell was fantastic. We're playing fantastic football. And that invincible season, and there was a buzz. He started the trebles. Certainly nothing like the football that was seen in invincible season today.
It was more like his second or third season today. That turgidness that did set in eventually, more so in the third season, I would say. Remember the defeats against Kilmarnock. I remember a couple of home games that were really quite poor. But yeah, it's the turgidness. I don't know. I don't want to put too much onto it. But just something feels a wee bit off.
Yeah.
Just now, Brendan Rodgers isn't. I don't know. It's that the passion isn't there as much that was the last time he was round. I remember in the first season, he was passionate. All the stuff he was saying, the stuff in the media. I just want a wee bit of passion, sort of injected into his persona and that.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked over to him about 5 or 6 times throughout the game. Had his hands in his pockets or his hands crossed. You know, he's got to be shouting. It's not good enough. Drawing nothing each at home to St Johnstone is just not good enough. And you just want a wee bit more passion injected. You know, fight for the 3 points. It just seems as if they accepted the point at the end.
Yeah, Sugarman comes in and says, just listening to Ange, he said giving the players freedom to be footballers helped them not to second guess themselves. And he believes that Celtic, all he's seen with Celtic under Brendan is players second guessing themselves all over the park. It's a fair assumption. Yeah.
They're thinking too much. They're thinking too much of what they have to do. Yeah, and you can see that in their game because even a split second, if they're thinking, then the defence can pounce on that or the opposition can pounce on that, and then any pathway to the goal is then switched off or turned off. Something's just not right at the moment with the club. I think we've got every right to be concerned because nothing each at home in any situation is a bit of a nightmare. Just due to the players that are on the park, the players that are available, even coming off the bench. You know, you're bringing on somebody like Liel Abada, who's been linked with Ajax, linked with big teams around the world, Ajax, Premier League teams as well. You know, Southampton were linked in January as well. I know they're in the Championship, but they were a Premier League team at the side at that time. These are players that should be. These are match winners. They've got to come on and be match winners. And as much as I want to give Liel Abada and people like that leeway, this is Abada's third season at the club. He's got to be making an impact when he comes onto the pitch, or you know, he won't make it in the team. He'll continue to be on the bench due to his performances. I even thought, although Haksabanovic was trying to make things happen in the centre, he was playing as an attacking midfielder. Nothing really came off for him, and then he started pushing and shoving St Johnstone players. I'm like, just get on with the game. You know, the team are looking for a goal, and you're getting involved in petty squabbles with St Johnstone players who will only be too keen to go down and waste more time. But you know, that's their prerogative, and they got their point at the end of the day. You know, you can play whatever way you want. If you get a point at the end of the day, that means that their game plan was executed. And in some ways, they'll have been quite disappointed not to get 3 points with the chances they had towards the end. There was a point where Joe Hart had to make a big save when I think it was Stevie May was 1-on-1.
Yeah, that's right, Stevie May. Yep.
Who's always been a handful.
Yeah, 450 people joining us live, Ryan. They're wanting to say they're just as disgusted as the performance with yourself and myself. I thought it couldn't get any worse than last week, but you know, a week's a long time in football, as you say, isn't it? You know, and all the kind of talk about a reaction and a backlash just didn't happen, did it?
The only backlash that happened was in the supporters. Today. There had to be a response and a reaction today, and that would come through a good performance, a couple of goals. You know, that was the bare minimum today, I would say, or the bare minimum was a win today. The fact that they dropped points at home despite having all the possession, all those forward players on the park, it's just not good enough, and something needs to be changed. I know that it looks like Luis Palma is coming in over the next couple of days. That's a big boost in terms of somebody coming into the team and who can make an instant impact. He's been playing first team football in Greece. He will make an impact. I would presume he would go straight into the first team for next week if that was the case. And I hope there's more signings that come in that can do that, because the team is badly in need of reinforcements, and either the reinforcements that are currently injured just now, or reinforcements that need to come into the club still. Either way, this team just isn't good enough at the moment, and the result just isn't good enough today. I'm pretty fed up.
You would fear for that starting 11 at Ibrox, wouldn't you, Ryan? There has to be first team ready players signed this week to be flung straight in at Ibrox. Baptism of fire, call it what you like, but going to have to do something, because that team, you don't have any confidence in going to Ibrox and getting anything from the game.
Yeah, and I don't think it's been too negative to discuss this, because I think this is how the majority of people are feeling just now. A lot of people are worried about Ibrox. It doesn't matter what version, how strong Rangers are or what players they've got in their team. It's always a difficult result. You know that'll be an intimidating ground. You know the fans will be on your back. There'll be no Celtic fans. I don't even think they took the tickets, so there'll be no fans. You know, everything is against Celtic next Sunday. It's going to be a really, really. It would be a tough ask even with all the players available, but with half a team out, or with some players just clearly not good enough to play in this system, or whatever system it is, then we're going into this game. I don't think I've ever been as unconfident for one of these games in a long, long time, and that's terrible, because Celtic should be going looking to get a win and looking to get a great result. They would be 6 points clear if they'd won the game today, if they'd done their job. But yeah, it's going to be a big ask. It's going to be a tall order. Let's see if Celtic can come out the traps and surprise most of us, if not all of us, because I don't think many are expecting a good result, unfortunately.
Not at this moment in time. Well, a week's a long time, as I said. Next week's massive. Celtic need a new injection of ideas and the players to back it up for next week. Couldn't agree more, Scott. Well, it is, it's like everything else. You sat there and watched that today, and again, after a while, I kind of gave up on the idea that Celtic were going to score.
I gave up after about 60 minutes with regard to that.
Yeah, you just hoped that St Johnstone wouldn't create a chance and score and make it even worse. And they created 2 chances and nearly scored. Lovett saying something not right. Celtic supporters can all see it. It certainly looks like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it felt like watching one of those games, one of those lockdown games. It felt like watching one of those, but being in person at it, because it just felt so turgid, so uninspiring. I think you were in a more favourable position, because if you weren't enjoying it, I know you couldn't for work purposes, but you could have easily just switched it off. For me, I had to watch it. I
was dying to switch it off. I have to say, I was dying to switch it off.
It wouldn't have been a spoiler for somebody to tell you that we wouldn't score in the last 30 minutes, because you knew that was going to happen. It's not a spoiler. Yeah. It was almost inevitable with the players that were on the park. I think I lost hope for Celtic getting a winner when Matt O'Reilly started making slack passes towards the 60, 70-minute mark. I thought if anything was going to come from him, if anything was going to come, then it would come from him, and it didn't. And then when he started to become one of the poorer performers in the second half, like everybody, that's when I gave up on that regard. Or in that situation, but it's a very disappointing day. Things can only get better, I suppose. You would hope.
Jim McGuire saying Brendan is undone. All of Angie's good work. Sugarman, big fan of Brendan's, but something isn't right. Not sure if he's having second thoughts about coming back. Would prefer to find out now rather than wait to see him destroy everything that's been built. You just
Something's
don't know.
Something's not right.
Yep. So, we'll see what happens in the fullness of time, or in the next 7 days. It's crucial. Your season could shape up around it, couldn't it?
Yeah, how ironic is it that the connection for the post-match, where I have to talk about nothing each, is better than the pre-match when I was all confident about going into the game. Yes, when you were all buzzing,
you had to,
These things happen, but sorry, what was your question again?
I'm just saying, I've got 7 days to put things right, Ryan, in terms of on and off the field, and work on a system of play that will repel Rangers and get a lot of Celtic supporters saying they would take a draw right now. I always want to go to Ibrox and win, Ryan. Always, but you just don't. It's like, contrast that to the past 2 seasons. Whatever team the manager put out, you'd every faith in them getting a result, didn't you? You've lost a bit of faith in this team over the past couple of weeks, and it sounds ridiculous to say that, but you have, because you're watching on, and I go back to what my father said last week as well. It's just not Celtic, is it? It's not Celtic that you're watching at this moment in time. Pale imitation.
I'm going to use a quote that Russell Boyce said in one of his podcasts earlier on this week. It's like Celtic light at the moment. It's not the full fat version of Celtic, the free scoring version that we've come to expect over the past 2 seasons. It's just the light version, and there just doesn't seem to be that effectiveness. It feels like the season of 3 years ago rather than the last season, the season before. I know you were saying you've got to have faith. I thought you were going to say you've got to have faith. I'd be putting out an SOS to Jota right now, because we're missing a player of his quality. I know Luis Palma is coming in and he looks like he can make some sort of a difference with regard to goals and assists, but there's a Hatate shaped hole right now due to injury, and there's a Jota shaped hole due to the fact he's in Saudi Arabia just now. You see him sitting on the bench for Al Ittihad. He should be playing games. He should be playing games at a higher level. He might get in. Postecoglou might come in and take him. He'll go to Spurs and be a star down there. But he should be playing games. I'd much rather he was here. I know it's 25 million. It's good. It's good for the profits. But it's hurting the team not having a player like Jota, or not having a replacement in Jota. Maeda is a pale imitation of Jota. He doesn't have anywhere near the quality that Jota possesses on the wing. And I think it's a dereliction of duty, to be honest, not bringing in a left winger that has been as good as Jota.
Well,
I think put the numbers up.
I think the whole transfer window thus far has been a dereliction of duty, Ryan. I've got to be honest. The whole transfer window has been so underwhelming, and you thought they did the right thing by bringing a cracking manager back, but Big Dom saying, supporters have lost faith in the manager, not the players. I wouldn't say I've lost faith in the manager completely. I was just saying I lost faith in things as they stand at the moment, because there's something not right. The manager's paid a lot of money to sort this out. The players have paid a lot of money. They need to sort this out. And I tell you what, it's not confidence building when you're heading to Ibrox in 7 days or 8 days. Yeah. And Celtic needs something to happen at Ibrox to kickstart their season, really. Because whilst they won their first 2 games and drawn today, they've knocked out the cup. I don't think they've fired at all, Ryan. At all. And there's a malaise there. There's something not right. Me, I talk about circuits not connecting and dots not being joined, and it's all of the above. It's malfunctioning at this minute, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems like there's been a short circuit or a fuse or something like that. Something's not right. You're right about that. It needs to be identified, whatever's not right, and it needs to be fixed, regardless of what that is. And there needs to be 4 or 5 signings, I would say. 2 or 3 is not going to cut it this week or this week coming. I think there needs to be 4 or 5, including Luis Palma. So it'll be Palma and 3 more or 4 more. If they're going to be short-term options like Lianco of Southampton, then so be it. I know there's a lot of Southampton fans that are saying we can't wait to get rid of him, but it might be better than a winning team rather than a team that's, well, I say a winning team, a team that used to win the first couple of games of the season. Maybe better than a more positive team that goes for results. But I think there needs to be 4 or 5, to be honest.
Peter Murphy being optimistic. Yeah, the big Aussie didn't start well. Brendan Rodgers will come good, but Celtic fans are an impatient lot, teething problems. I get all that. He did, I have to say, so we shall see.
But the thing, I think the difference is, though, Tony, that yes, he didn't start well away from home. I think he dropped points in 4 games out of the first 7, but we still beat Dundee 5-0 at home in Postecoglou's first game at home in the league. We were scoring goals at home. That was never the problem. We were scoring goals against Hearts, I remember too. That was at home in the League Cup. I know we got beat away from home, but even then we scored goals. There just seems to be a lack of goals in the team at the moment. And goals win you football matches. Then it's a simple game, regardless of how much statistics or tactics or whatever you put into it, mentality, philosophies. It's a very simple game at the end of the day. You put the ball in the back of the net. Celtic didn't do that, and that's the reason why they dropped points today.
Big Dom, it's not just about signing, it's about the system and whether our players understand it. Completely agree. I think Celtic got a massive 7 days on and off the park. Even if they bring in players that can be pitched into the first team, they need to deploy some kind of system that will, as I say, repel Rangers and take something from the Ibrox game. And Stevie Boy, Big Tony won't be seeing rip roaring free scoring anytime soon with who in charge. if you didn't catch the start of it, Stevie, I said, what did I say? Perspiring, misfiring, uninspiring. So, yeah, I think the last 2 games can be encapsulated with those 3 words. I'm just looking at Ryan. He is off the charts, sick with the last 2 performances, and it's certainly ruined the weekend for a lot of people. Again, Ryan, last week was, last week we all thought last week was a blip. We felt that Celtic would come out the traps this week and show something, but they failed to do it again, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Last week was a blip. This was a slip this week. I don't know what else. I don't know what else would rhyme with that. A trip. We don't want it to be a trip next week. That's for sure. Yeah, it's another disappointing weekend, to be honest, with regard to Celtic. I think it would have helped if we had a midweek game to maybe alleviate things. But then again, you've got no guarantees that Celtic could win that game either. If there was to be a midweek game, we're very much you're gearing up to a game. The fact that you don't have 2 games a week at this point in time means you have that 6 or 7 days. You're gearing up to the game, and then whatever happens in that, you're either top of the world or you're bottom. You're in a slump, and unfortunately, for the second week running, you're in a slump. A draw today feels like a defeat. It is effectively a defeat. The Celtic should be winning their home games and the vast majority of their away games with the resources that they have. Even if a lot of them are injured or some of them aren't at the club yet, the players that are still on the park should have more than enough to beat what was put in front of them, and they didn't. So that's the crux of the matter, unfortunately, or the way the cookie crumbles, you could say.
Not a happy Monday then, boys, says Hazel Finn. Yes, it won't be Hazel, but we'll try our best to put some kind of positive spin in the cold light and analyse it again. On you go, Ryan.
Unless Sean Ryder can come on to the morning briefing, then there won't be any happy Monday, that is for sure.
And unless Celtic make a plethora of signings in the next 48 hours, there we go. We'll see what happens. But no, it's not good enough, is it? Really, Ryan? It's as you say, it was turgid, wasn't it? For most, I said it was boring. So. And it was, and Celtic got what they deserved from it. Nothing, and the manager said that himself.
Yeah, even though we got a point, we did get something. It's still nothing when you look at the result earlier on in the day. Rangers get the win, so that gap is now closed a wee bit from their slip at the first game of the season. There's now is it a point between the 2 teams?
Yes, a point. Yeah.
So it's basically on a knife edge next week. That'll be the first sort of bragging rights, you would say, bragging rights game of the season. It's a derby. Celtic shouldn't need to get up for that game. It should be clockwork. It should just happen. Celtic should be up for the game. They should be up for the challenge they will face, because it will be a challenge, especially with the team that they currently possess. When Celtic do, or the team that they don't possess in terms of players that are not available due to injury. Even with the players, if they were available, it would be a tough game, but it just gets even tougher with the situation that Celtic find themselves in with regard to injuries. Tough ask, but at the same time, stranger things have happened. Teams can go into these games off form, and then they can pull a rabbit out of the hat. So, yeah, it's the next 7 days are going to be very telling. 8 days until the Rangers game. We'll see what signings come in. If they're of note, if there's any signings of note, then they need to come straight into the starting lineup and command a place. But even then, it's not ideal for players to be making their debuts at Ibrox. These players should have been making their debut at Ross County or Aberdeen, or at worst, Kilmarnock, or even worse today. The fact that they need to make their debut at Rangers at the end of the window is just a dereliction of duty from the board and the recruitment. As much as as I have been positive with the recruitment in terms of young players coming in that will make Celtic money in the future, that will be good players, we need players for right now due to the situation that we find ourselves in. Look at Lagerbielke. He's now a first choice centre half. He is the first choice. He was only
because he has to be.
He was playing for Elfsborg 2 weeks ago. He's playing in the Swedish league 2 weeks ago. Now he needs to go to Ibrox as Celtic's first choice defender. It's just not ideal. I know injuries happen, and hamstring injuries happen. They can happen at any time. Nawrocki pulled up in the last 10 seconds of the game against Kilmarnock, but it's not ideal. did we rush Carter Vickers back? These are questions for another day, but it's not ideal. The only positive, or one of the only other positives, is that Alistair Johnston's back in the team. I'm glad to see him back, because he played for 60 minutes. He was definitely the better of the two right backs between Alistair Johnston and Tony Ralston. It wasn't a great performance from Ralston when he came on for the last half hour, but he's got minutes in the legs in Johnston, and I'm sure he'll have to play the whole 90 next week, to be honest. You need some stability in that back line, and Alistair Johnston is going to give that in the right back position. He's got to play the whole 90 minutes. But I know we'll talk about that more as the week goes on, but a very, very disappointing day all in, and one that we can definitely talk more about for sure.
We will do, and we will talk more about that on Monday, daily morning briefing on the Celtic way. And thanks very much, 450 people. I think it got upwards of nearly 500, Ryan. And if you like what we're doing, you like the videos, then why not take out a subscription and subscribe to the Celtic Way website, and you can help support top quality journalism, covering the club you love in the process. And we always ask you to hit that subscribe button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Celtic huffed and puffed, didn't blow the door in, Ryan. Celtic 0, St Johnstone 0. Dropped the first 2 points of the season. Next stop, Ibrox.
Yeah.
Your reaction says it all.
Yeah. It's just one of those ones, isn't it? I feel like Ian Cathro after that press conference where he just doesn't say anything. Everything that's said, I think has been said already. And yeah, big ask next week. But there's new players. If they want to make themselves heroes, then they'll put in a shift next week at Ibrox. Tough game, but stranger things have happened. I'm going to try and end this on a positive note. You never know, but at this point in time, very down in the dumps after that performance. The only way is up, hopefully.
Console yourself with that old cliche, Ryan, that form goes on out the window in a derby match. Isn't that right? Yeah.
Copy and paste.
You're going to have to. Exactly. You're going to have to. Ryan, thanks very much for joining us. Celtic partner background there. An unhappy place today. Celtic 0, St Johnstone 0. I would say enjoy your weekend and enjoy your night, but I know it's already spoiled already. But guys, thanks for joining us. Thanks for the comments. Try and read as many as we can on the briefing, and we try and troubleshoot as well. Some infiltrators on the chat there as well, trying to sort that out too. But thank you very much, Scott Nish. Thank you for your comments. That's very kind. Class show, lads. Always enjoy it. Everyone, I love the fact that fans can get the points across. Keep up the good work. Next week, hope the team surprises. I think every Celtic supporter hopes that as well, Ryan. I think that's the kind of answer. Hoping that the Celtic team will surprise them. Who knows? We move on. Celtic travel to Ibrox next week. First Glasgow derby of the season. Dropped our first 2 points of the season today, Ryan.
Bad habits to be getting into, for sure. Don't want to be doing that too many times this season. They'll get a chance to make it right again next week. We'll see what happens. That should be, if they have any motivation or they have any reason to go out and put on a good performance, it's that. Put it right, get a win at Ibrox and everyone will be singing again. But right now, there's clouds over Celtic Park down to that performance, both figuratively and literally as well. So yeah, it's one of those afternoons and one of those evenings. We've just got to dust ourselves down and get on to the next one.
And very few silver linings, Ryan, sadly. But yeah, I will let you go, young man. Thanks for joining me. Stellar contribution as always. Thanks, guys, for your comments. We shall see you on Monday for the Celtic Way daily morning briefing. Hope you can join us. Take care. Have a good weekend if you can. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.